Wasting time, we're going to start immediately. And what we're talking about today is effects of microorganisms on food processing equipment. The effects that microorganisms have on food processing equipment. So that is what we're looking at in the lecture today. I need to let us know that microorganisms are ubiquitous. That means that microorganisms are found everywhere. They are everywhere. They are ubiquitous. And they are found in the environment and they cause significant damage to food processing equipment. Microorganisms are everywhere. Just mention the place. Microorganisms will be there. Whether inside hot water, say, yes. So even inside. So Mavi was trying to disturb because she was talking on the ground, so I have to mute her because. So I was saying that microorganisms are found everywhere. Anywhere you are going to find microorganisms in any environment and also in food and in food processing equipment. Now, the presence of microorganisms in food processing equipment can result in a number of problems. And one of the problems is corrosion. Another kind of problem it can cause is fouling. Another problem it can form is biofilm formation. And all these can impact the quality and the safety of the food that is being produced using that particular equipment. So if a microorganism causes corrosion in food, it will affect the quality of the food and it will affect other things linked with the food. It will even affect the safety. If there is fouling of the equipment used in producing a particular food, it can also it can affect the quality and the safety of the food. The same thing if a biofilm is formed in the equipment used for food processing. Now, when we talk about food processing as food engineers, I'm not talking about cooking. Cooking is cooking. It's different from the food processing actually. When we say food processing, we are talking about a particular process. We are talking about a particular process in the food industry that transforms the food from one state that the food is to another state. Let's take, for example, the processing of cassava to garri is a food processing, it's a process of processing the food. A process is involved in processing cassava to garri, that's food processing. The process involved from the garri to eba or to garri in water to drinking is cooking. It's not processing per se. So food processing involves moving the food from this natural state where it is from agricultural state to another state that can now be cooked. That is the processing of food we're talking about. So number one, we talk about this corrosion. Now, when we mean corrosion, it is one of the major problems associated with the presence of microorganisms in food processing equipment. And what we see is that microorganisms produce acidic waste products inside of the food. So these acidic waste products that is produced inside of the food can cause corrosion of metal surfaces that is in the food processing equipment. So if the microorganism produce acidic waste products, waste products there are different ways that can be produced. And most metabolic waste are acidic. Some may be alkaline, but if acidic waste products are produced, it accumulates and then it causes corrosion of the food processing equipment, of the material used, the metals used for food processing. Now, when the material used for processing is corroded, what happens to the food processing equipment is it can crack and then holes will be formed. We have holes inside of the food processing equipment. So what you see is that when you now have holes inside of the food processing equipment, then from there contamination can take place. So the food can get contaminated through holes which have been created through corrosion. So that is one of the effects. Now, that is caused by corrosion. Another thing that can happen, problem, is fouling. Fouling is another issue that arises due to the presence of microorganisms in food processing equipment. Microorganisms can attach themselves to the surfaces of the equipment and form a layer of organic material known as a biofilm. This biofilm can act as a breeding ground for other microorganisms, which can result in contamination of the food being processed. So, when there's a fouling, microorganism that is not supposed to be in a particular food processing equipment is there. Now, other microorganisms will gather. Let's assume that the microorganism that was there was not even pathogenic, cannot cause disease. Other organisms gather together, and then the ones that can cause disease appear. And then what happens is that the food that is passing through gets contaminated right from the food processing equipment. So that will affect the value of the food in the market. Another thing that happens is fouling. Fouling is another issue that arises due to the presence of microorganisms in food processing equipment. Microorganisms can attach themselves to the surface of the equipment and they form a layer of organic material known as biofilm. So, fouling, okay, I've talked about that. Now, biofilm formation can also impact the efficiency of the equipment. The efficiency of the food processing equipment can be impacted by fouling, as it can reduce heat transfer when there's biofilm formation, where it's supposed to go through and get to the food processing equipment as it's going through. Biofilm are formed there. A lot of organisms, bacteria, fungi, gathering together. That's what they call biofilm inside of the food processing equipment. They take part of the heat meant for the food processing equipment. They take part of the treatment meant for the food inside of the food processing equipment, and that will reduce the efficiency of the processing equipment and of even the business. So it can reduce heat transfer and fluid flow. This can also result in longer processing times, increased energy consumption, and decreased product quality. That is what biofilm will do if it is present in a food processing equipment. Now, let's go on to talk about ways to prevent the negative effects of microorganisms on food processing equipment. How do we prevent the negative effects of microorganisms on food processing equipment? Number one way to prevent it is that it is important to implement effective cleaning and sanitation protocols. You have to clean the food processing vessel from time to time, every time. You have to be carrying out sanitation on the food processing vessel every time, so that these organisms will not have a place to stay inside of the food processing equipment. So you clean and you sanitize. And then the regular cleaning and disinfection can help to remove microorganisms and prevent the formation of biofilm. So apart from cleaning, which is just normal cleaning, physical cleaning, sanitation, physical sanitation, then disinfection. You can use some chemicals. You can use ethanol, you can use different chemicals to run them through the food processing equipment so that any microorganism inside of the equipment will be removed through that. So regular cleaning and disinfection can help you to remove microorganisms and also to prevent the formation of biofilm. In addition, it is important to use corrosion-resistant materials. Don't just use any material. Use corrosion-resistant material in your food processing equipment so that this problem of corrosion will not be experienced in the material you are using. So a material that is corrosion-resistant should be used. You see, in the case of water pipes that we use, those days we use for water pipes. Those days we use what? Iron pipes. But what do we use today now? We use PVC pipes. These are pipes that are corrosion resistant. PVC pipes can resist corrosion. They are not easily corroded. So today now we use PVC instead of the iron pipe that we use those days. Then another problem we have with our piping in most places, just like the oil pipes, oil pipeline, and other pipelines, is that These pipelines are not made to last forever. When they were made, they were not made to last all through life. They have the pipes have an expiry date, maybe 20 years, maybe 25 years. The same thing food in the food processing plants. The processing plants are not made to last forever. In food processing plants are not made to last forever. So what that means is that after you have used a particular processing plant for a number of years, sorry, I removed some people and I reported them to, because they are making a noise. I don't know what else I'm going to say. So you are in the class and you are putting your audio on, and at the same rate you are in the class not paying attention. You are making a noise. So I deleted them. I removed them from the class already, and I will not allow them to join back. So as I was saying, another way to tackle the problem in the food processing equipment is that you should change the food processing equipment after a number of years. They are not made to last forever. Look at it, maybe 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. You remove the equipment and bring new equipment so that the efficiency of the equipment can be maintained in terms of the microbial and other things. So I said that additionally it is important to use corrosion-resistant material. Then they should, in the construction of food processing equipment overall, the effects of microorganisms on food processing equipment can have significant impacts on the quality and safety of the food being processed or being produced. Now, it can have effect. The microorganisms on food processing equipment can have significant impacts on the food quality. If a microorganism that is not supposed to be in a food is there because of the processing, it can affect the consumers. Once it affects one consumer, two households of consumers, what will happen? It will be everywhere in the news. You are sure that food item or that product, people will not buy it again because it will be in the news that this product, don't buy it again. And if you are conversant with the news and with food, you hear that some batches of some food, maybe it's a Movita, maybe some kind of food, they'll tell you that this particular batch, it will be in the news that people should not buy it. So for that time, people will not buy it until the company moves their product out of the market, and then they take care of what is causing the problem. Quality control of the government will check the kind of food now being produced, and then when it is okay, they now allow them to bring their product into the market. You can imagine the economic loss to the company. Economic loss, a lot of losses will be made in that process to the company. So that is why, as a food engineer in a food processing equipment, a food processing company, you must be up to date, checking from time to time and making sure that things don't go wrong in the company. Usually, most companies will have, big companies will have a microbiologist, but sometimes they will not have a microbiologist attached to them. They depend on their engineer to do the needful. Now, the engineer does not need to be checking for microorganisms, but the knowledge of sanitation, knowledge of disinfection, knowledge of microbia that, okay, microorganisms can gather if this is there. So they prevent what will allow microorganisms to gather in the food processing equipment. So that is the role of the engineer there. Even if a microbiologist is employed in such companies, that is the same role he's going to play. Let me tell you a story. I was looking for a job many years ago after I graduated and after my master's degree. I was in Lagos, so I went to this company. Somebody working with Tasty Fried Chicken as an accountant referred me to them. And then we were invited for a test and interview. So on getting there, I submitted, we gave us a test of about 20 minutes. I wrote the test. I passed the test. So we were asked to wait. So during the interview, they asked me that, what am I coming into the company to do? And I told them I'm coming to work in their lab. You know, they did not call me again. They didn't call me because later on I knew that I messed up, because the Tasty Fried Chicken or Chicken Republic or other Mr. Biggs or other places, Charcoal or other eateries, They don't have a lab. All what they want to do for them and working for them is that your knowledge of microbiology, you now use it in food as a supervisor to be able to know that, okay, when you handle food, maybe you should use your face mask so that saliva will not enter into the food. So that when you are handling food, you may need to use, instead of picking the food with your hand, you can use something like a picker, food picker, or meat pie picker to put the meat pie in nylon before giving it to the customer. So these are the things that you should guide again, because if you use your hand, microorganisms can be introduced on your hand onto the food and then passed on to the consumer or to the customer. So overall, the effects of microorganisms on food processing equipment can have significant impacts on the quality and safety of the food that is being produced. Therefore, it is important for food processors to take proactive measures to prevent the negative effects of microorganisms on their equipment. So I already gave you the material. I will look forward to you to read the material and read more on this aspect. And I'm going to give you an assignment now, which will be submitted immediately also now. I wrote it down somewhere. I'm trying to look for the place where I wrote it down. I wrote down the assignment I want to give you somewhere. I'm looking for it now. Okay, as I'm still looking for where I wrote, here I have my jotter here. I wrote it down somewhere. I'm looking for it. If you have any questions so far, you can ask your question before I give you the. If you have any question on what I've said on effects of microorganisms on food processing equipment, you can ask the question now. Okay, it was another paper I wrote it. I've seen the paper where I wrote the assignment I wanted to give you. So the assignment I want to give you, which will be submitted and sent to my email in the next 20 minutes, is that corrosion-resistant materials for food processing. So just write briefly on that. Don't attach anything. Just write it in the mail, directly in the mail, not an attachment. I'll take it again. Corrosion-resistant materials for food processing. That is what you write on, and then you send it to my mail in the next 10 minutes. Corrosion-resistant materials in food processing. You write on it, and then you send it to my mail immediately now. So I'm going to close the class now. In the next, the time now is, I will end the class shortly, but we'll be back again in, I'm trying, just a minute. Okay, the time now is 11:23. So I'll be back. You should have done the assignment I gave you, which is corrosion-resistant materials for food processing. You write on it. Don't attach it to my mail. Just send it directly. Write it inside the mail and send it. So, and then if you are in the class last week and you sent your material for last week, don't go and open a new message. The same message that you used last week, which I responded to, is the same message you should send. For those I send the notes to today, that same reply, just reply and write on the assignment, corrosion-resistant materials for food processing, write on it briefly, and then send to me. I don't want you to open a new mail. If you open a new mail, that means you are not in class last week. if you go and start a new message, that means you're not in class with the same message, so that by the time at the end, I just click your name or your matric number, everything come out in one. I don't want you to use two. If you have two, I will not take you seriously. So by 11:40, we'll be back in the class again. See you then.